know if you have about 5 hours, I could probably work that one out. But let's see. My background is in human resources. Today it's called people and culture. That's the newest incarnation. When I actually started the field, I was in personnel. So we've gone through a number of different changes over the years. I've worked for all size companies in human resources and the staffing industry. So I've been a general manager of a large light industrial staffing company. I've had my own company basically focused on real estate property management and also social media related. That was helping companies become employers of choice. So you get a small company that's up against a really large, well-known company for talent. And generally, people are more familiar with the larger companies, so you've got to level the playing field. So a lot of people ask me what the connection is between the two. That's it. So I've been at this game now for about 50 years. I've been at Thermo Systems for about almost 8 of those years. And we've been focused primarily on doing engineering hiring. It's critical. When I started in human resources, particularly on the talent acquisition side, which then was just called recruiting, we did things a completely different way. We used the phone a lot more than we do today. You have to get past the gatekeeper to get the information if you're from a staffing service. If you're a company, it was you answering the phone, wondering how the gatekeeper let the call through. But really, recruiting today from a corporate side is really all about the net. It's really come down to your ability to use social media effectively and to stay on top of all the changes because it's a moving target. Everything that we do has to do with, right now, LinkedIn. And between you and I, LinkedIn isn't doing very well right now. We're noticing a fall off of Americans and Western Europeans using the platform. They're electing to use TikTok more. Companies are a little nervous about going there because of the Chinese connection. And we're trying to, I know a number of us, trying to bring more Americans and Western Europeans back into the LinkedIn fold. I think it's possible because there's a lot of great information that can be shared, particularly in the groups. And I run some groups on LinkedIn, and we're having some success. I think it's just a matter of putting a little bit more effort into it. We're using AI a lot more than even when it started. We're really figuring it out in human resources, and we know we have to be careful because it's very impersonalized. So we don't want to release ourselves from the obligation to connect with people. And we also know that another aspect of AI is that you have to be careful with the laws that are associated. You can't use it as a selection tool. So it's really a productivity tool when you think about it. It helps you write a memo. It helps you write some sort of a treatise, if you will. It helps you communicate a little bit easier. It's still your thoughts, but it puts it in a way that's grammatically correct, right syntax, using the right spelling. And then perhaps it's good for research. I find it very, very useful for research. But even with research, you have to double check because it's not always correct. So that's the biggest change right now. I've got 2 books on my shelf by an author who's been doing a lot of writing on AI. So I know it's a particular hot button now for my field. So this you stay on top of. Of course, there are changes in the way we interview because of going back and forth from behavioral interviewing to other forms of interviewing and kind of coming back into full circle. For me, interviewing is really a conversation with someone. I never tell anyone I'm interviewing them because you really look for character over skill. You want to find people that are passionate, motivated, and certainly the skills will be found out during the process, but it's really about the fit and making sure that people really join your organization and work out well. So these are the things that are constantly changing. Some of the things are same-o, but there's always a nuance to the same-o. Some study that was done, some information that some scholar put out or some expert came up with. You got to keep reading. I read constantly. I stay on top of what's happening. I think it's a combination of a number of things. I think they're retrofitting TikTok to the job search because they're so comfortable using it. LinkedIn was never designed to be a social network. It was really designed to be a business network. We used to say that Twitter was the world, now it's X. LinkedIn was the office, and Facebook was the world. I think that still applies. So a lot of your more recent generations haven't really embraced LinkedIn. They have a profile there because Career Services tells them to, but you notice that they're devoid of a picture. They never posted anything. And from when I talk to them, they kind of get in and get out. So they haven't discovered the benefits of the group. However, in the groups, and even when you're looking to connect with people, you'll notice that most of the people that are engaged are coming from Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, the Middle East. I asked them why that is, and it's, well, they're looking to really have the opportunity to learn from Westerners, as well as to see if they can possibly find a job in another country to get out of the countries that they're in currently. And I've talked to LinkedIn about this, and they acknowledge that the average LinkedIn user is only on about 17 hours a month. And so that's not really a great opportunity to meet a lot of people and to have a lot of discussions. And people are also a little tired of getting beat up by recruiters on LinkedIn. They're constantly called by headhunters who are looking for them. They're taking calls and emails, and a lot of it is almost to them spamming. I think that's part of it. And the other thing I've heard recently is that I know when I started using LinkedIn, people, and I still do, when people call me, I give them my time. They're saying that some people that they call for information interviews are not willing to give time and actually are annoyed. So I think we have to go back in time a little bit to a time when people were a little bit more civil, more interested in developing themselves further. There's a lot of very good information in those groups. I know in my group there's tremendous stuff, and they're just not finding the value in that because they're not finding the value on being on the platform. And for employers, we all need to worry because right now there's no replacement for that. That's how we do most of our recruiting. That's how we do most of our connecting with people. The only difference is when our people recruit at work at our company, we don't recruit right in people's faces. We develop relationships like my blog, like these appearances that I do on podcasts and share, so that people build up a level of trust with the employer. That maybe you're not looking to hire me today, but if we get to know each other, maybe sometime later I'll approach you as a candidate. And that happens a lot. I get some beautiful messages in LinkedIn from people saying, Mark, your blog posts are so helpful. I've called you before. You've given me some really great advice. You can't do everything for today. You got to do some things for tomorrow. And I think if the employer side starts to understand that, I don't know about the recruiters, they're headhunters and they're money focused. But if the average human resources recruiter does more to help the applicant community, that's social responsibility. You're uplifting people to have a better feeling about your organization because your organization is letting you have the time to help these people. You're promoting your industry and you're also promoting learning and development. So I think everybody here needs to take a different approach, and we've got to save LinkedIn. We really do. First of all, since it's your audience, I want to congratulate them because they can teach people in the West a lot. They are really on top of LinkedIn. I'm very impressed. I really am. Unfortunately, the barrier to all that is what's going on in immigration. The rules are changing. They're tightening up. It's very hard for employers to consider people with visas. It's almost like what's the best word I could put it? Like a game of roulette. You don't know where each situation is going to land. It could be costly. It could be time consuming. You can come up with nothing in terms of hiring the people. There's some other factors that are added to that now because of the climate, hire America first or whatever. That's not us, but we are bound and constricted by the laws of the country, making it much more difficult. Even in Europe, when we're hiring, we have to make sure they have Schengen visas and things like that so they can go from country to country. The immigration picture makes it tough. I feel bad for folks because they're coming over here and studying and they want to stay. Yet once they're out of school, now it becomes a whole different ballgame with they're on a visa, they don't have a green card or they don't have a citizenship, and companies really have to factor that into, do they want to go ahead and do all these things? Can they wait? I think the best thing that they can do is to continue doing what they're doing on LinkedIn because, in fact, it is the main platform still to connect with people. I know over in Europe, I think they use something called Zing, which is the equivalent. So they can look at that if they want jobs in Europe. I think it comes down to them, what they're presenting as. They have to have a powerful online presence. I think that's very important. So they must make sure that their profile on LinkedIn is completely it's got to be truthful. It's got to be well designed and produced, with spelling and grammar and syntax and all that sort of thing. You want to make sure that there's a photo and that it's a photo very professional. Sometimes I see some that are not. Not the photo that you put on Facebook or elsewhere is not going to be the proper photo all the time for LinkedIn. They have to develop in-demand skills. They have to know what the skill sets are that companies are looking for, depending on where they are. For example, in our field, in the United States, we hire people with PLC and HMI background. Programmable logic controllers, human-machine interfaces. Most of the stuff over here is related to Rockwell Automation. It's called the Allen Bradley line. In Europe, it's completely different. It's Siemens, which we do a little bit with. So you got to know what the employers geographically are looking for and the skill sets they need, and make sure that you go and find those skill sets and get up to speed. You don't want to fall behind like 1999 with COBOL, with the folks working on Y2K. That's not going to be a good thing. A lot of those people weren't prepping for what came next, which was object-oriented programming. They made a lot of money on Y2K and then they quickly got out of the business. But those people that got object-oriented programming went to work with HTML and all those kinds of things. They should have a strong personal brand, which I think is very important. So they should have maybe a blog if they can, connected to LinkedIn, maybe some videos, maybe some examples of the work they do, so that people see them as someone that's professional and somebody worthy of credibility. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. They have to network like a pro. You've got to be careful when you reach out to somebody and you're asking them for your time. Again, it can't be in your face. It's got to be very respectful. Something like, hey, I just graduated college. I got a degree in such and such. I'm new to this. I really would love to spend 10 or 15 minutes with you, kind of understanding how things go right now in the employment world. Most nice people will give them that time. But if you start off by, hi, I'm such and such. Do you have a job for me? And I get those. And you're blown back. It's like, well, my first reaction is no. I don't even know who I'm considering. So I think you start off with a very respectful, reasonable approach, and then see if you can start to build a little bit of a connection with that individual. They should showcase their real-world work. They should be prepared to prove and to show examples of the work they did that relates to what it is that the company that's considering them is looking for. So lately we've been hiring or looking for people in financial P&A. And a lot of those people haven't really been truthful with us about model design. You have to develop forecast modeling and things like that. When we ask them for an example, they send it to us and it's below par. So they should really have something to show that they can do the things they say they can do. I think they probably want to focus on showing initiative, authenticity, and adaptability in all of their discussions. So those are the recommendations I think I would have. I know we gave them a lot. Hopefully they can slow me down to 33 1/3 and instead of 78 and kind of take it all in. I think that's very hard to predict because there's a lot of moving parts right now. The generational changes from one generation to the next seem to be really diametrically opposed. I think people are still finding their way, and they're still dealing with people that are a generation or two behind them in making the employment decisions, which I think makes it a struggle to try to get everybody together. People are doing things one way, and they're doing things a different way, trying to bring the parties together. And it's hard to find people on TikTok when you're on LinkedIn looking for people. So I think that all has to play out. I think that's the biggest change. I mean, will AI make much more of a difference? Again, there are those restrictions. I don't know how those change. If anything, I think they're going to tighten up because you could be very disreputable using those tools. So there may be more laws. There's case laws haven't yet been tested as to what is the appropriate use of this thing. And then what comes after AI, we have no idea. There are a lot of various technologies for recruiting that are out there. I always tell this to the people trying to sell them to us because they're extremely expensive. Human resource departments don't get tremendous amount of money, and the monies that we get, we have to spend wisely. So we can't invest tons of money in one particular type of software and live or die by it. So some of these things are utilized more than others. There's constant changes. People are looking at one, and the next project that comes out from another company improves the one that's already out there. So you have to decide whether you want to invest in this, realizing that their competitor is going to come out with something better, and yet you're in a contract for a year, 2 or 3 with this particular one. I think what that means is that people in human resources are going to try as best they can to stick to the basics and make them work, rather than to go for the brightest new shiny object that comes out. And I think it's a deliberative process because, again, you're bound by the laws. You also don't want to hurt your employer brand. If AI did everything, people will pick up on that right away. We should never, ever send anything out through AI without proving it and without adding our personalities to it. Don't send it out without mentioning the person's name. Don't send it out without maybe putting in some information that lets them know that they're dealing with a fellow human being rather than a computer. So these are all the challenges that we have. I think that the change is going to be faster in what's coming out than in what is adapted to. Well, I think that in order for people to stand out, they have to really know themselves. They really should practice interviewing in front of someone, in front of a mirror, as they used to say, even better than nothing, to really read over and over again their resume so that, as I always call it, the words and music go together. They don't realize, and they should, that most employers will lay their resume up against their LinkedIn profile. And there are many times that they blow that because they haven't made the changes to balance them out. And people will say, he's got a job on here that he doesn't even have on his or her resume. So these are things that you kind of kick yourself by not paying attention to. It's like anything else. The devils are in the details, and the details are what employers are looking for. Sometimes you go to a Facebook page of a candidate and you see some really, really horrible things on there. Things that are not appropriate for the workplace. I think that's the biggest thing that people will be able to do. In other words, control what you can control. And these are things you can control. Yes, it takes a little bit more work. It also takes work to write a cover letter and produce a resume that matches the position you're applying for. People don't do that. I get resumes for engineers that say, yes, I'm looking for a job as an insurance salesman. It's like, why are you setting that for an engineering job? Now you're telling us you don't have the passion for that job. You've got to make sure that it's like if you watch a court drama on TV. What happens? The attorney stands up before the jury. He tells them what he's going to prove or she's going to prove, and then they present their case. Well, that's what a resume is. A resume, an application, they're just marketing documents for all practical purposes. They're designed just to get our attention to want to go further. And if it comes in DOA when the resume is different than the LinkedIn and the cover letter doesn't really back anything up, you haven't made your case. And as a result, the employer now, as we call it in our industry, has seen red flags go up, saying that something isn't right here. And it's always easier to move on to the next candidate who doesn't have those issues. So take care of business where you can take care of it, and then be your best self. Don't try to be someone else. Don't try to be nervous. You're just having a conversation with another fellow human being. We're not judging you. We're only determining whether or not you're qualified to do the job. We're not saying you're a good person, a bad person, indifferent. We're just saying you have this skill, you don't have enough of that skill. That's really what we're looking for. At the end of the day, we might want to go out to dinner with you because you're a nice person, but you didn't get the job because you didn't have the Power BI skills or whatever it is that we happen to be looking for that position. So that's what the advice would be from me.